So let's review the syllogism. Again, in math, this is very simple. A is the same thing as B. B is the same thing as C, so therefore A must be the same thing as C. In logic, there is an extra layer. It isn't that A is the same thing as B. Rather, A is absolutely interconnected to B. B is absolutely connected to C. Therefore, A must be connected to C, or even an example of it. But it's the same structure, only instead of numbers, now we're going to be using words and concepts, but they're going to stay as in A is this word or concept, and B is that word or concept. And its framework looks like this. Each line, there are 3 lines, as you can see. Each line has a specific job to do. The first line is a generally held truth or principle, and that is an assertion about the nature of things. There are variations, but starting at kind of a simple level, it's just you're saying all of these are like that, or none of these are like that. So in this case, this example down at the bottom, this is Aristotle's sort of when he created the concept of the syllogism, and the example he gives us here from the philosopher Socrates. Aristotle says, general held truth, all men are mortal. All people will eventually die. Line 2 then is a specific, verifiable fact. It's your evidence. You can prove it. And it's one concrete example that you're pointing to. In this case, the verifiable fact, Socrates is a person. That is verifiable. You're not making anything else about it. Then in the third line, then what is the conclusion we can draw about the second line based on its connection to the first? Because Socrates is a person and all people are mortal, then Socrates must be mortal. That's the idea. And so you're just following that basic framework. And with it then, the color coding is actually useful when you're first starting to do these, because then you can be thinking about, okay, A equals men or people or persons, something, because the words may change depending on the context you're using it, but the concept must be there, and you're keeping the wording the same so that you're saying A equals B, men, mortal. Socrates, man, Socrates, mortal. Keep the structure simple. There can't be a fourth line. You're not introducing other ideas. It's a very simple logical construct. So again, we're going to start very simply, but these are important to learn because they help with logical thinking, but also they're going to enable you to crystallize your argumentation, and they're extremely helpful in learning to identify the point that others are trying to make in their texts, especially when they're complicated. But let's start with a simple one. All right, I give you a generally held philosophical truth, and that is that all kittens have big sad eyes to just make your it'll heart break. Second, verifiable fact, Mr. Scratchy here is a kitten. Therefore, what logical conclusion must we draw about Mr. Scratchy? Yes, that he has big sad eyes and your it'll heart is breaking right now. That's it. Again, we're probably going to get a little more complex than Mr. Scratchy syllogisms, but it's that basic framework. Where it gets really useful then, because most often, as I've touched on, in complex texts, they don't come out and say the general truth. It's buried in the specific examples and what they have to say about those. And by breaking down the syllogism and looking at those parts, we can identify where are they going with this, or what is the flaw. Now notice this last part. That first line doesn't have to be true. It's believed to be true, but it can be wrong. And that is why you can look at sometimes people are in fact being logical. They are in fact using logical reasoning, and yet their conclusion is incorrect based on their starting point. We'll get into that more in enthymemes, but this is the basic breakdown of syllogisms.